Birds do it, bees do it, even some human beings do it. Let's fall in love. On the previous page, you basically asked how a person knows when they are experiencing romantic love. The very irritating yet essentially correct answer is that if you have to ask to that, it ain't it. It's like pornography. The very first time you run across it, your eyes may get all wide and ask themselves, "Whoa, what's this?" But pretty soon, you figure out what it is and what it's for. Just like a cliche, you'll know it when you feel it. But the way you know it, when you feel it, is by laying the proper foundation. And the proper foundation is a falling in love experience. So, as promised, we'll be starting with step 1, which not coincidentally involves making your eyes get all wide as if they were encountering pornography for the first time. Like this. Step 1. Open your eyes very wide and keep them open that wide until they get really dry and start hurting and everything. Admittedly, this sounds like an incredibly stupid step. Still, you need to follow it. Right now. At your computer, while you are reading this. Open your eyes very wide and keep them that open, that wide, until they get really, really dry and start hurting and everything. Do it. Right now. Okay. Why did I ask you to do that? Because I wanted the hilarious good fun of imagining you with your eyes wide open and all dry and everything while I was sitting here at my computer cracking up. Ho ho ho. But now that I've indulged myself, I will cleverly reveal the secret hidden reason why I asked you to do this. Because it's a core step to falling in love. People open their eyes up real wide when they are scared shitless or encountering something really novel or interesting in their environments. Like the person they're going to fall in love with, or a gigantic alien bowling ball descending toward their heads at approximately 2,000 miles an hour, or whatever it is that they're encountering that's worth feeling scared and curious about. And that's the basic sensation that accompanies falling in love. Terrified curiosity. Just so you know, they call it falling in love because it basically feels like being hurtled off forcibly a cliff of indeterminate height into an abyss of certain and yet rather thrilling death, basically. But back to our main point about wide open eyes. Being scared shitless in and out of life itself does not automatically suggest that there is a benefit to wide open eyes. We are just used to the correlation. The truth is, people open their eyes real wide when they are scared because the eager and nervous cells of their bodies want a bigger window to anxiously peer out of. The information-seeking cells of your body press themselves in a terrified manner against the portal of your eyeballs and scream to themselves, "What the fuck is going on?" When your eyes are wide open, they have a better chance of finding out. Really. Actual scientific studies have now revealed to an enthralled public that when you open your eyes wide with terror, or even less interestingly, with curiosity, that your body really does process more information and at a faster rate than when you lounge around with your eyes half closed lizard-like. It makes a difference. And what this means is that if you can teach yourself to keep your eyes open, you are more likely to accidentally, and it will be accidentally, spot the person you are destined to fall madly in love with. Your eyes have to be open and looking. Really, they do. They need to be curious and observant. They cannot be glazed over and inattentive, consumed with private and internal worries, or vexing questions about calculating square roots, or the meaning of a dream you just had last night about a changing elephant that ate a lot of bananas, and then burped loudly before jumping into your backyard pool. And when you open your eyes wide, you will find it difficult to concentrate on things that could ordinarily consume your attention, like pepperoni pizza. Because your brain will, whether it likes it or not, be forced to process information about the wider world. Wider. Get it? Wider? Ha ha ha. Now, I don't mean to imply that I actually expect you to go around like a dork with your eyes wide open, like you have a thyroid disease or something, but really, if you can periodically remind yourself to open your eyes, you are more likely to actually see a woman who will knock your socks off. And finding that your socks are missing is a sure that either you have done laundry or gotten really drunk and engaged in unfortunately Asian, or more promisingly, fallen blissfully in love. I realize you may not want to do this. Actually start looking for someone you can fall in love with. Since you have a girlfriend, and that could potentially set off the whole guilt portion of the guilt and disappointment equation, but maybe you could kind of sneak in some looking when you're not too busy. Maybe you could even look with your eyes open at your girlfriend every once in a while, just to see what information your brain picks up. But, you say. Or at least you're supposed to say this at some point. I do not know what I am looking for. You were quite clear about this in your query. You already knew intuitively, with your brilliant intuitive of something, that what you needed to be doing was looking for something, but you do not know what, so I will tell you. What you are looking for is someone better than you. Way better than you. Someone who can do things that you just plain can't do, like, relieve the pain and fear in your life, or be calm when you are not, or get excited when you can't, or whatever happens to be really impressive at the moment it happens. This is incredibly simple and insanely logical. You are looking for someone better than you, not someone you can tolerate for long periods of time, although that takes things easier. It's not someone who can tolerate you for long periods of time, although that is quite pleasant. No, my friend. You are looking for someone who is obviously out of your league. Not just out of your league in a visible way that makes people say to you, gently or not, don't you think she's kind of out of your league? No, I mean out of your league in a way that you didn't realize actually existed before you saw this person. People who are inherently and obviously in your league are boring. People who are not in your league or are otherwise forbidden are not boring. Indeed, out of your leagueness is a core romantic fantasy of people from all cultures and walks of life, male and female. Bollywood makes musicals about it. Shakespeare wrote tragedies about it. Romeo and Juliet were conveniently out of each other's leagues, not just because they were young and hot, but also because they were otherwise forbidden. If you don't care about Bollywood and the greatest writer in the history of the English language, then just look at a few more modern American movies. Romantic comedies written by men almost always pair up the guy with a woman who is out of his physical attractiveness league. Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl, from a particularly egregious example in the movie Knocked Up. Romantic comedies for women almost always pair up the woman with a man who is out of her financial league. Example, Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts. To go back to older examples, Cinderella is a classic out-of-her-league story with Cyrano de Bergerac, or Beauty and the Beast, are classic out-of-his-league fairy tale type things. There are so many goddamn principles of the enduring and powerful hold of the out-of-your-league principle on the example of the human imagination that your wide-open eyeballs would explode if you had to watch or read them all. Out of your league equals true love. Sort of. It's more complicated than that, as not all out of your league people will qualify as true love objects. And we'll deal with the complications later, when we get around to it. There are, in fact, many complex mathematical equations that take place during a romantic relationship as to exactly how much better than you is ideal for you at any given moment in the relationship. The love brain actually keeps a running tally of cumulative better than you point totals over the course of a relationship and tries to keep the out-of-your-league person it loves from getting too far ahead by forcing you to display your own superior qualities on rescue type occasions. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because at the moment you are not in the correct type of better than you relationship. Indeed, if we are going to be brutally vicious and truthful, sudden suggestion, do not encourage your girlfriend to read this. The fact that your love brain decided to try to explain to me that you care deeply about your girlfriend indicates that important brain cells in your brain think that you in fact are better than her. Because when a love brain starts using phrases like care deeply about you, what it really means is something like, it's not that I don't care deeply about you, because I do. It's just that I don't really want to be around you anymore, at all, if possible. Like, for a really long time. I'm thinking maybe, let's say forever. And it thinks these kinds of things because it thinks the other person will be all hurt and shit if you walk out the door. And it thinks the other person will be all hurt and shit because the other person must be aware that you are better. It's kind of a self-fulfilling loop and occasional hazard of relationships. Now, your conscious brain may think nothing of the sort, but your love brain is sliding toward the door and thinking up handy excuse phrases about caring deeply and trolling the internet for escape information. For when the love brain feels that you have latched onto someone better than you, it stops using socially appropriate English language phrases, or French phrases if it's really romantic, in favor of a desperate suicidal wordless sensation that it cannot live without whoever it loves and doesn't really want to try. So let's go over the convincing logic behind looking for someone out of your league. OOYL. Oil. Going over the convincing logic is a time-wasting device that will allow your conscious brain to confer behind the scenes with your love brain while you are idly reading, which is important because they need to get their shit straightened out so they can come to an agreement that will allow you to search successfully for a falling in love experience. Convincing logic element number 1. The brain's definition of happiness. The human brain experiences happiness when results exceed expectations. In honor of a recent 60 Minutes television show report, we'll call this the Danish effect. In honor of yummy pastries. Actually, it's in honor of the Danish people in Denmark who are accidentally and entirely unbeknownst to themselves the happiest people in the world. They are the happiest people in the world because no one in the world is very impressed by Danish people, including Danish people. This means that Danish people are frequently pleasantly surprised to discover that in spite of the weather, things are basically going alright. Who'd have thought? The Danish people wouldn't, and so their brains are periodically and happily surprised by the contrast between their low expectations and their actual realities. Brains, including human brains, are wired and designed to perceive contrast, especially contrast between expectations and reality. Reality better than expected equals happy. Reality worse than expected equals unhappy. Reality better equals good. Reality worse equals bad. This is why you could get insanely rich, but if you're hanging out with people who are super insanely rich, you will feel discontented and unhappy with your finances. In fact, the entire United States of America is insanely rich and peevishly discontented at the same time. Because the entire US of A is constantly being exposed to things, advertising, that make it expect things that it does not have. By the same token, you could see a new world record in swimming at the Olympic Games. But if some asshole set a new world record during the same race that was just a teeny bit better than yours, you could be bitterly angry and disappointed. Brains pay attention to contrast. The implications of this for romantic love are clear, logical, and not exactly sentimental. If your love brain perceives that you are in the company of someone better than you, or oil, it will compare and contrast your inferior self to the superior person you are with and shout joyously to itself, "Score!" And then it will start trying to jump on the bed. It will dance around in delirious delight, happily comparing and contrasting reasonable expectation, someone about the same as you, with the glorious reality that you are with someone better than you. Furthermore, it will never tire of this sensation. You and your love brain may tire of the superior person eventually, but every time your wide-open eyes see something that reminds them of the love object's superiority, the love brain will get that old familiar thrill, and your little heart will start to flutter again. It's an addictive sensation, and one well worth pursuing. Back to Danish pastries and convincing logic element number 2. The Danes, it turns out, also have ample opportunity to munch on pastries because they live in what Republicans who know big words refer to as a modern welfare state. A modern welfare state devotes its governmental considerations to obtaining things for its citizens like health and economic security. It does not worry so much about considerations like freedom from taxation, opportunity to engage in voracious capitalism, free market competition for scarce resources, being a world superpower, and so on. Consequently, Danish people do not have to devote the kind of brain resources to desperate worrying about sheer survival in a vicious and ruthless economic system that people in countries like, say, the USA in the 21st century have to. In an amazing twist of fate, liberation and desperate worrying frees up the Danish brain for useless activities like happiness, contentment, and constant enjoyable complaining while sitting around in cafes munching on delicious pastries. Again, the implications for a romantic relationship are clear. At least in my mind they are. When you hook yourself up with a continuing basis with someone with the right oil, better than you quotient, not only is your brain frequently pleasantly surprised, it also feels deliciously safe and secure, as though it was hanging around shooting the breeze and munching on pastries like this. Suppose you are the type of successful yet inherently stupid person who would make a lot of money and then attempt to sail around the world solo on your ridiculously expensive boat. And then, because no one would do this unless he was stupid, you encounter a variety of stupid and yet alarming and life-threatening problems on your attempted voyage. You, having cleverly fallen in love with someone better than you, whip out your saltwater damaged satellite phone, pray vigorously, and then miraculously reach your oil helpmate. You tell her your problems and express doubts about your progress along with grave worries and indecision as to whether or not you should continue. Your better than you person listens seriously and then says, "Get your ass home, Steve. The first thing you need to do is get your equipment repaired, and then you need to rethink your navigation routes. Continuing this voyage is stupid unless you address these problems." And then you sigh with delicious security, knowing that you are talking with someone better than you who makes the right decisions when you are leaning toward the wrong ones. And you are able to go home in full and contented knowledge that with the assistance of the better than you person, you will eventually achieve your goal. Or if you are the opposite and always inclined to bawl and bail out too soon, and you choose the correct oil person to fall in love with, Then you call up that person who tells you to keep at it, and you do, and then it all works out okay, thank God. Either way, you always have someone to blame your success on. There's no better antidote to the constant stress and worry a brain will try to subject itself to than to have someone by your side that you can always blame your success on. Really, this is $1 million key to your life turning out better than it usually does for most people. Success principle. Okay, so much for convincing logic. Now, how are you going to actually find the person with a correct balance of oil better than Eunice, and yet in plausible attainability? It's actually easier than you think, although it can take time and effort. Oh, come on! Seriously? Of course I want someone out of my league. But how in holy fucking hell is that ever going to happen? Well, warning. Extreme good-lookingness and falling in love may be associated with mustard or garden dirt. How are you going to find an appropriate out of your league better than you person? Well, first you are going to look. We already established that by drying out your eyes on an earlier page. But what exactly are you going to look for? What are the telltale clues? Telltale clue number 1. Looks. Good lookiness, hotness, physical attractiveness, beauty, drop-dead gorgeousness. Again, this may seem obvious, and it is. But so many people overlook the obvious point or fuck it up completely. Because oil does not mean Angelina Jolie. Many people worldwide can identify Angelina Jolie as a sensuous-looking, physically attractive specimen of large lipid lushness. She is hot. If you go for that sort of physically attractive, large-lipped specimen of lush hotness and so on. Many Playboy models are hot also. Other models who are not Playboy models are also easily identifiable as extremely beautiful. Lots of actresses are hot. That's what they get paid for, being hot. It is nice to look at people who look very fucking good. But this is not the key to falling in love. So now I'm going to give a little advice that will save you about $80,000 that you could otherwise spend on pursuing and eventually divorcing hotness when you finally fall in love with someone who is truly out of your league at an inconvenient moment that will make you look like a real jerk. And that advice, re-hotness, that any idiot could identify is, skip it, forget about it, get over it, don't worry about it, leave it alone. What you actually want is a very specific type of oil good-lookiness. And that type of oil good-lookiness is super secret, master spy, only you can truly see and appreciate it, breathe, stopping, heart pounding, oh my fucking god, I am in serious trouble, good-lookiness. How do you become a master spy capable of ferreting out super secret, heart-stopping good-lookiness? Practice. Like this. Step number 2. In our newly minted multi-step programming for falling in love, while you are young and it is convenient instead of waiting until you're old and have more money to lose inconvenient, go to a bar or other public place where relatively young people of potential good-lookiness of your favorite sex will be attempting to display their good-lookiness wares. Take a male friend along. Very important. Do not skip this step. Identify people you think are good looking and point them out to your male friend. Say things like, she's hot, isn't she? Or whatever crazy lingo you kids use these days to indicate potential hotness. If your friend enthusiastically agrees, cross her off the list. Wrong. Bad. If a total simpleton jerk like your friend can identify this person as totally hot, then there is nothing super secret about her. What you have identified instead is a competition magnet. She's not just out of your league, she's a one-way ticket to humiliation because everybody will know from moment one that you've got plenty of competition. And if she has even an ounce of reproductive brains, she will need to be checking out that competition and ignoring you. No good. Cross her off the list. I know this strategy is in direct violation of the general horniness leer at everyone in my age range like a pig strategy. And the general horniness strategy does have a lot of merit in many different situations, most especially for treating general horniness. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the general horniness strategy. I have employed it myself on many occasions, including on occasions when I was in love. But the general horniness strategy is no good for actually falling in love and needs to function as an occasionally pleasant diversion that will lead nowhere. Because that's where it leads for our purposes. Nowhere. Let your friends pursue that strategy while you cleverly pump them for information on who to avoid. Strange yet odd, eerie love coincidence tip. Very often, the incredibly good-looking person you eventually fall in love with, because she is out of your league, will be forthrightly identified by your friends as very good-looking. But they will identify her in this way after you have fallen in love with her, or they will identify her as VGL, and you will, for the life of you, not be able to see it until after you have fallen in love. I don't know how the universe arranges this, but in order for this secret formula to work, someone has to not be aware of good-lookingness until after love develops. There are reasons for this which we'll allude to later, but may never get around to explaining because I may not feel like explaining them. Okay, back to the bar or whatever it was that we were hanging out with your simpleton, generally a horny friend. When you have finally identified someone that your friend reacts to with tepid indifference, then take another look at the tepid indifference inducer. If you have the same reaction, cross her off the list. If your mind says, yeah, you're right, not too attractive really, it is in no way going to work to try to fall in love with this person. Move on, immediately. What you are looking for is a person that your friend or friends cannot be bothered to pay too much attention to because they are too busy drooling over other people. At the same time, this should be a person that you find it difficult to not pay attention to because your own personal eyes and mind are like, what? You want your eyes and mind so bewildered by the sight and presence of this person that they can't even put ending T's on their words. So what your mind is drooling and reduced to baby talk and no longer knows how to form regular English words even in the privacy of your own brain. We have already established that in order to find someone worth falling in love with, you need to look. Constantly. And not at the ones that everyone else is looking at. Since you have a girlfriend, it is probably not going to be cool to do it while you're with her, unless you're looking at her, which you should do. You may be surprised at what you see, happily or unhappily surprised, but even if you aren't, you will establish the baseline for women in your life and what they should look like. Then, when you're not with a person of the female persuasion that you are ostensibly romantically attached to, here's what you do. You look at women people all the time, but not at what they look like, at how they move, what kind of gestures they make, their facial expressions, and what they're doing. Because the key to heart-stopping, lethally gorgeous, super secretive, etc. doing, etc.ness is not in how a person looks when she knows she is being looked at or judged for her good-lookingness. It isn't how she looks when she is accidentally dropping a hot dog at a baseball game, how she looks when she has her back to you and is talking to someone taller, how she looks when she is wearing a sweatshirt and digging in a garden, how she looks when she is trying to climb into a convertible without opening the door, how she looks when she is pontificating on natural history and women's economic rights to a professor who truly does not give a fuck, how she looks when she is trying to learn Spanish or eating M&Ms. Because the thing you need to see with is the sex brain. The sex brain, for some unknown reason, is able to up subtle clues as to reproductive excellence by watching people wipe mustard off their chins. I have no idea why a sex brain will suddenly shout to itself, "Garden dirt! I am in love!" But it will. It will see brain. It will see someone gardening and know all it needs to know. I personally do not find watching someone handle a yucky fish they have just pulled from a river to be a way to deduce reproductive excellence. But some sex brains can just do that. Fish slime. They'll yell, and they'll just know in some mysterious primordial way that they have stumbled upon the egg carrier from reproductive heaven, and that all will be well with the millions of children they intend to spawn with the woman in question who's against all common sense willing to hold slimy fish in their hands. The thing is, you do not know whether your own sex brain is wildly attracted to mustard, fish slime, garden dirt, peanut shell splitting, motorcycle riding, political activism, gin swelling, sarcasm, squinting, clumsiness, intense anger, horse laughter, cool reserve, ruthless ambition, leggy elegance, or what. But you can rest assured it will be attracted to something that tells it is looking at someone who is not like other girls. And in order to find someone that your sex brain can identify as not like other girls, you have to be watching women when they are not acting like other girls. It's that simple. You have to train your eyes to be looking for the things that signal mediocrity. The difference between horniness and love is the exclusion of mediocrity. That's why we had to hone your vision by having you hang out with your horny friends. They are your mediocrity check. If they're attracted, the person in question is not better than you and is therefore, by definition, mediocre. Even if she is a competition magnet. Got it? Of course not. But next, we'll give you the magic clue as to how to identify the subtle reproductive cues or something that will help you fall in love with someone appropriately better than you, so you can rid yourself of the mediocrity you are currently attached to, even though that sounds kind of cold and everything to call someone mediocre. Although, let's face it, most people are. The bluebird of love happiness is hiding in an improbable place. Our old friends, insecurity and self-hatred, come to the rescue once again. Step 3. For falling in love is simplicity itself, although kind of tricky to pull off in practice. Step 3. Become thoroughly acquainted with your own insecurity and self-hatred. Recently, I heard noted love experts Jim Carrey and Mike Myers dispense the well-known love tips that you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else, and you must be a whole and complete person before you can attract the right type of person to yourself. Ha! Well, they are both comedians. What they actually mean by this is that if you can profitably wallow in your own insecurity and self-hatred for long enough, eventually you will become so desperate that you'll think anyone is better than you. Oh no, wait, that's not exactly what they meant. It's sort of what they meant, but really they meant that if you can stand to say to yourself, man, sometimes I hate myself so much, it's not even funny, and yet not kill yourself, you'll be primed for love. Loving yourself actually means not killing yourself even when you are convinced there is objective evidence that would argue in favor of it, which is an act of great forgiveness and compassion in itself. And being a whole and complete person means being a person capable of withstanding great agony, because falling in love is so intense that it is its own form of great agony. Although a very wonderful form of great agony, in other words, by hanging with your insecurity and self-hatred, you are exhibiting a willingness to accept someone you can blame your success on, instead of feeling as though it's very important that you be self-sufficient enough to escape or repress fear and self-loathing altogether. Truth is, insecurity and self-hatred make the love world go round. In fact, they are what make falling in love such a wonderful and upsetting experience in the first place. Ergo, and Heather too, in order to fall in love correctly, you will need to tap into your vast, rich, untapped stores of insecurity and self-hatred. It is probably possible that you are one of those people who is out of touch with his own supplies of these precious and yet abundant natural resources. If so, you will not fall in love until you get in touch with them. So start drilling. Start by identifying a perceived personality flaw you can criticize yourself viciously for. Let's say, just for fun, that your perceived personality flaw is an over-reliance on other people's favorable opinions of you as a source of self-esteem and willingness to continue living. But, put bluntly, you want people to like you. This is an excellent trait, and I am now convinced that you are destined for overwhelming success in life. And yet, this personality flaw, like all personality flaws, is a hideous and horrible secret, or not so secret burden that you must drag with you like a ball and chain of torture with you all the days of your life, as you are constantly slapped and strung by the merest hint that someone does not like you, forcing you into an endless round of conformity and effort to be charming, trying to be nice, flattering to people, and you do not really like them all that much, while punctuating your sentences with nervous laughter and a winning smile, and so on and so forth. Of course, your problem could be something entirely different, but the point is that you are currently alive and you have one. This problem, or a problem like this, is your key to delirious falling in loveness and ecstatic reproductive success. Because as long as you have a personality flaw, there can be someone better than you. If your personality flaw is that you want people to like you, then all you need, essentially, is to clap your eyes upon a good-looking woman who does not give a fuck if anyone likes her ever. And when you see this woman, your heart will stop beating, your sex brain will start churning out chemicals, your breath will stop breathing, and you will know that you are in serious trouble. Now, do you see why we had to have you practice looking for the things women do instead of just how they look in terms of prettiness or hotness? Because it's in the way a woman walks, looks around the room, eats all the hors d'oeuvres, or stares you down, that tells you that she does not give a fuck if anyone likes her ever. This is how you identify someone who is hopelessly out of your league. For why would a woman who does not give a fuck if anyone likes her ever spend even a microsecond looking at someone like you who cannot stop giving a fuck about the same fucking thing? She wouldn't. She couldn't. You are so far beneath her, it's impossible to describe. And thus, this is the thing you want most in the entire world, now and for all eternity. You want this impossibly unreachable person to spend that microsecond liking you, which she cannot do because why would she? It makes absolutely no sense that she could even notice you. And yet, for your life to continue, she must. Can you get a sense of how sickening and thrilling falling in love can be? If it makes sense, it's not falling in love. And there are good reasons why this woman would be attracted to you. It's not love, and yet, once it happens, you'd be compelled to get to desperate lengths to attract this person with the very same hopeless personality flaw that ensures your doom. Got it? Of course you do. But I'm going to engage in an example of disgusting digression just the same time. It's been bothering me, and I need to make other people suffer too. I saw Karl Rove on TV once. Karl Rove was the longtime right-hand guy to Bush 43. The reason he was the longtime right-hand guy for Bush 43 is that he fell in love with the future president. This is a horrible and disgusting thought, and it brings many very disturbing visual images to my mind, which I will not share with you, thankfully. But it illustrates the process. Karl Rove was smart and fat and scared and unpopular and a nerd. He saw young George W. Bush walk in the room, and what he saw was stupid and skinny and arrogant and rich and cool. He saw someone who didn't need to be smart, who didn't need to be fat to ease his feelings of being born hopelessly outside the privileged class to which Karl Rove aspired in his adolescent Republican heart. And so, young Mr. Rove instantly fell in love. What? Karl Rove's heart asked, would my life be like if for just one glorious moment I could be stupid and skinny and rich? What if I was not trapped in a body of a smart, fat, boring person? How people would love me, how the rainbows in the sky would shine more brightly, how the heavens would part and rain blessings upon me. I would be redeemed at last, secured in the loving arms of stupidity and skinny rich meanness. No longer would I be tortured by intelligence and nerdy insignificance. I would be accepted by God. And so on and so forth. Bush, meanwhile, saw a smart fat person and had the equivalent reaction. What, Bush's heart thought, would my life be like if my neurons would actually fire? What if I could understand things like big English words? What if I knew what I was talking about just for one glorious moment? What if the world was not a terrifying wall of information I cannot comprehend? What if someone could not hate me and admire me, and instead of disdaining me as an example of arrogance and incompetence and becoming my class status as a rich person? What if I could achieve nerdy certainty and acceptance on my own merits, if I had any? What heavenly sensations of warmth and light would I have access to if only I had a brain? And so Karl Rove became Bush's brain, and they carried on a sort of fuckfest and man-crush of perverse proportions for decades. Thus is love. Scary, but real. Now all you have to do is start hunting for someone who is neither Karl Rove nor George W. Bush, someone whose massive personality flaw will compensate for your own. Match it, and make heaven open up to you. This is just plain common sense. You are looking diligently for someone who should obviously hold your particular personality flaw in complete contempt, and yet who, because she does not have it, will be magically drawn to it like a moth to flame, or a bug to a bug-zapping light if you are funny to a fault. You are looking for someone who naturally has no sense of humor. If you are shy, you are looking for someone who nervously cannot stop being outgoing. If you are deep, then shallowness is your ticket to heaven. We could say, oh, well, this is just opposites attract, which it kind of sort of is, but not really. Because what you are unknowingly longing for is the sensation of longing. There are plenty of people who are in some ways opposite to you that are just irritating. They are irritating because their personality flaws will not solve your problems. If you are neat and like being tidy, then someone who is sloppy may be a good balance to your anal retentive uptightness, but not necessarily someone who will be worth falling in love with. Because you are fine with being neat and clean and well-groomed and vain and all that shit that happens to be bundled together in your particular personality. What you are not okay with is the gut-churning anxiety that accompanies your every indecisive move, no matter how industriously and successfully you cover up your absolute terror of making the wrong decision, which you probably do all the time anyways. So what you want in another person is what you long for in your own life. Intimidating decisiveness in all matters trivial and significant. So when you see a woman walk in the room bossing everyone around with complete and unwavering authority, your heart will sing. This is not the same thing as waiting and wanting someone who will abuse you and treat you badly, although a heart in serious longing mode may throw itself on the train tracks of being abused and treated badly in order to obtain contrast happiness and delicious safety. But your dream oil woman may be just the opposite. An exclusively kind-hearted puppy rescuer who could not be mean to anyone. Because if your self-hatred centers around your inability to stop worrying about achievement for even a second to rescue a puppy, then spotting a puppy rescuer may cause longing to ensue. This is not a rational process. This is a visual process. I truly wasn't kidding when I harped upon the big eyes factor. I mean, if you're blind, then you'll need to use big ears or whatever. But what I mean is that if your senses have been trained by billions of years of evolution to be able to pick up far more information about a person's soul than your rational mind can, the rational mind works slowly and laboriously, constantly referring to what everyone else thinks that is totally wrong, but still important to be aware of. Big, frightened, or curious eyes, on the other hand, have no time for that tediousness and cut right to the chase. Occasionally, your big eyes will attempt to hook you up with someone who will make you suffer like nobody's business. I've seen that happen, which is why experty-type experts will advise you to avoid falling in love altogether. But they're still wrong, because suffering like nobody's business is exactly the kind of extreme emotion that the heart inconveniently craves to calibrate itself. You don't have to stay in love forever. You just need to experience what it feels like. And it feels like you have laid eyes on someone who is just inexplicably admirable in a perverse and tender way, with the most gloriously wonderful personality flaws that you yourself could never hope to attain. So, what do you do when your sex brain identifies someone whose own heart beats and pulses with the personality flaws from heaven? What you do is trot out your own horrible personality flaws and display them like a peacock showing its tail feathers. You desperately try to attract the oil better than you person by acting like a hopeless dork who wants people to like him, or by parading your excessive achievement focus, or by displaying intense anxiety over every little decision, or by acting like a super smart nerd, or by compulsively rattling off shallow remarks that should offend the deep and soulful object of your attraction, or by being unable to put a lid on your cynical attitude toward life in front of the tender-hearted, non-cynical person you long for. You might think, well, that's a stupid idea. I don't want to show the tail feathers of my personality flaws to someone better than me, but here's the evolutionary deal with a peacock's tail feathers, which, by the way, do work in attracting the lady peacocks. Tail feathers are a useless impediment to a peacock's life. They are a real pain in the ass, literally. No, seriously, they are incredibly inconvenient to drag around, as you might guess if you've ever seen a peacock. When a peacock shows his tail feathers, he is basically telling all the female peacocks with an eye shot that he is such a stud that he can continue to live, even though he has to drag around the useless burden of a hefty clump of tail feathers. And the lady peacock's evolutionary reproductive brain thinks to itself, what an apt metaphor for life! So often it is full of unexpected burdens that a peacock must have the fortitude and foolishness to withstand. I certainly wouldn't want to invest my reproductive future in a peacock who didn't have the peacockian cojones to display a lot of useless tail feathers that indicate he is willing to soldier on in spite of overwhelming burdens. Particularly since I myself hope to become just a burden on one lucky peacock in the near future, or something like that. To put it another way, and this is truly not a joke, evolution has literally trained many different species of all kinds to look for compatible members of that species with glaring and inconveniently useless features. In humans, this usually translates into personality flaws. I'm not going to pretend that the object of your longing is going to understand why she is attracted to your own useless features, any more than I am going to pretend that you will truly understand why you are attracted to the useless features of the person you are falling in love with. This happens subliminally and instinctively, but it happens. Exploit the fact that it does. Admittedly, this will not always work. Life is unfortunately and always a game of probabilities, and even when it does not work, you are going to end up giving your big eyes a real workout, because it simply is terrifying. but it's a terror that eventually pays off big time in contrast happiness. And then you start becoming accidentally better looking, and so does she, and all of a sudden everyone can see you were made for each other. Because you've gotten yourself a scaredy cat who craves your bravery. Well, you crave her sensible caution. You've latched on the big word mouth who craves your ability to listen. The life of the party who wishes she could be quiet and still. The hysteric who longs for calmness. The insecure about my intellect person whose sex brain makes goo-goo eyes at your casual competence with astrophysics. This is entirely different from finding someone to go with, someone to be in relationship with, someone who is nice, someone who can get along with, someone you can tolerate, someone who you can be irritated with and fight with. This is different from finding someone who's a good person. This is love. How will you know it's love? You will know because you will want to do things like say, I love you, or sing, or jump up in the air and scream, yes, when the person agrees to talk with you. It will feel like there is a lot at stake. Chemicals will swirl around your body in a panic, trying to make you presentable before an appearance in front of this person. If you are normally quick to make a move, special jaw clamping cells will go quickly to work in the vicinity of your speaking muscles that will prevent you from saying a word. If you are normally quiet and reserved, desperate lunging cells will dart across the room and try to plant themselves in front of the object of longing, even though you have no idea what to do once you get there. Impolite staring cells in your eyes will make impolite spectacles of themselves. The entire energy field of your body will rearrange itself to announce, I am fucked up! Pay attention to my disarranged energy field, please! People who have never met you, and if everyone who actually knows you, will realize that you are hopelessly in love, and whoever it is, no matter how hard you try to deny it, the only person who will not at first realize your intense attraction is the oil person herself, who will be too attracted by her matching personality flaws to realize what is going on. There is a song in the musical South Pacific that illustrates the feeling fairly well. In it, the woman sings the haunting and yet entirely unoriginal phrase, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, many times in a row. When your brain starts humming songs like this, you will know it's love. Indeed, the basic storyline of this song illustrates what we've been saying on this page. The storyline is this. I used to be a big fat dork. Now I'm in love with someone wonderful. And that's how you will know it's love, basically. When you used to be a big fat dork, and probably you're not. To recap, or debrief. To fall in love, simply look diligently with wide open eyes at people who are doing things not typically considered attractive, such as stuffing fried chicken into their faces, until you find one who excites your sex brain with strange yet compelling visual evidence of out of your league, better than your you-ness, that promises to match in complementary fashion the very insecurities and reasons for self-hatred that you normally wish you didn't have in the first place. Proceed to display your matching personality flaws in desperate yet colorful fashion.